Hello, and welcome to the Global Executive Training and Development Association podcast with Dr. Kamal Ranasinghe. Today on Global Reflections, do you know your world, even vaguely? Watch as Dr. Ranasinghe challenges us with his geography test. Dr. Ranasinghe, on many occasions it seems to be obvious when you're speaking to groups that they may not be aware of the different parts of the world that you're talking about. I know that you often say, "Do you know your world?" and then threaten to apply a geography test. Would you speak briefly on this issue?
All right. I think in that last podcast I mentioned that San Diego was 10.5 hours to London. And that's all the way across to London. That's flying time. In the other direction, it's 10.5 hours from San Diego across the Pacific all the way to Tokyo. Nowhere is in fact too far. I think the fastest commercial flight in the world today is Singapore Airlines 1 from Singapore Changi to Los Angeles International across the hump. The real reason I mentioned nowhere is too far is because oftentimes I get the strong feeling that unlike my era, people don't seem to know very much about their world and the geography. And with that in mind, I think it's worthwhile everyone sort of somewhat getting acquainted because it continues to change. There are, I would go back to the map, there are 200 odd sovereign nations on the planet right now. The most recent new nation is Southern Sudan. There are others waiting for official recognition. That's 200. For any one particular nation to think that it is the be-all and end-all of everything is not only extraordinarily arrogant, but foolish in the extreme in the manner the world is evolving. Most people should look around at those they work with, those they study with, people they interact with, and see if they know anything about those people beyond the fact that they meet them regularly. See if they know from whence they come, their antecedents, their culture, so on. For instance, I oftentimes ask students, where is Asia? And I threaten them that anyone who points at a map and says there is going to fail. I needed an exact idea from them. With that in mind, the official manner in which to look at Asia is from the western seaboard of Pakistan. I hope you all can see this map. From the western seaboard of Pakistan, if this was a Peters projection with the curvature of the Earth, it would be from there all the way up to the Kamchatka Peninsula, Sakhalin, that curve of the Earth. That is Asia. It's vast. From north to south, today any intelligent, globally inclined person will know that Asia now includes the nations which were previously part of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, and so on and so forth. These are ethnically Asian countries. They now all fold into that Asian region. Coming to the south, interestingly, Asia now includes Australia. Very interesting that. Presumably that's by dint of the fact that Australia now realizes, or has realized, or some of them have realized, that without Asia they probably won't have any sustenance whatsoever. But I am reminded that this is the Australia which not too long ago had something called the White Australian policy. But there you go. That's for another day and another time. But the point of the matter is, with all the people that you interact with every day, which Asian? Are you talking about South Asia? And how many people know to differentiate between South Asia and, say, Southeast Asia and the Far East? South Asia is made up of these nations there. No, these nations there. South Asia includes Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, the Kingdom of Nepal. I will always call it the Kingdom of Nepal, so you'll have to forgive me. The Kingdom of Bhutan, the Kingdom of Sikkim. It includes, depending on whether it's high tide or low tide, the Republic of the Maldives. It includes Ceylon, Sri Lanka. It also includes a rather wonderful sovereign territory. It's an interesting sovereign territory. It's a sovereign territory within another sovereign territory. South Asia includes the sovereign theocracy of Tibet in exile, which is in Dhammapada, in India, inside of India. That is South Asia. Where is Southeast Asia? Well, this is Southeast Asia. And, you know, take this geography test to work. Take this geography test to your next class. Take this geography test to your next cocktail party and try it out. The best way to look at South Asia is start from the bottom. Use the ASEAN countries, the 10 ASEAN countries, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Indonesia. I happen to be in the United States. Americans are unaware that Indonesia is almost, well, it is longer than the United States is broad. It starts up here in the Bay of Bengal, these islands here, all the way across the planet. Indonesia owns half of Papua New Guinea, West Irian. Part of the reason that we are standing here talking without the use of mechanical devices to get breathing air is because of two sovereign nations on the planet, Indonesia and Brazil. These two countries still actually have trees, good God. Indonesia owns most of Borneo. It stretches all the way across the world. Indonesia is the fourth most populous nation on planet Earth. It is the largest Muslim country on planet Earth. Start with Indonesia and then go up into this area of Southeast Asia. Little Ceylon, Little Singapore, smaller than Rhode Island, but vastly more thrusting right at the moment, richer, determined to be a significant nation on the planet. Malaysia. There's Malaysia, the Peninsular Malaysia, and Malaysia on the island of Borneo. There are two states there, Sarawak and Sabah, two states of Malaysia on the island of Borneo. Slap in the middle of it is what may or may not, depending on how you calculate it, be the richest country of planet Earth, the Sultanate of Brunei Darussalam, Brunei. And then going further up, that way, there's the Philippines, this incredible archipelago of thousands of islands. Going up beyond Malaysia, the Kingdom of Thailand. far too many people are unaware that in this whole region, Thailand is the only sovereign nation that was never colonized. Up beyond Thailand, Vietnam, of course, now making significant inroads into the world in all sorts of industrial areas, still working its way to retrieve what was lost by other events. Similarly, Kampuchea, Cambodia, Laos, and of course Myanmar, Burma. That is Southeast Asia. Can you go south? Of course, there's Australia and New Zealand leading into that whole area of the Pacific. You know, can you go back to Indonesia? Okay, stop there. You might check the camera because I don't think it's going to show it properly. I've been walking forward. I'm out of the picture. You don't look at it. You hear the words the Pacific Rim, and I'm always driving and seeing, you know, trucks with words like Pacific Rim, words like Pacific Rim plumbing or something. I always want to stop them and say, oh, well done, Pacific Rim, eh? Should we have a chat about the Pacific Rim? And I know that what will probably happen is the person will go, duh, what the hell are you talking about? What is the Pacific Rim? That Pacific Rim is the crack in the Earth's surface. That's what it is. Most people are unaware. Can you bring up the Pacific? Most people are unaware of what I'm talking about. Okay, all the way down from China, through Japan, through the Philippines. Here's the Philippines, down through Indonesia. Remember Krakatoa? Japan has its earthquakes regularly, China has its earthquakes, the Philippines, etc. And then on the other side of the Pacific, bring me to the United States. On that side, of course, we've got the United States of America and all the faults down through Mexico and down through South America. There's this sort of circular crack in the Earth's surface. That is the rim. Slap in the middle of it is this massive, gentle, or oftentimes gentle, Pacific Ocean. The deepest part is the Marianas Trench. I often say, do you know your world? Can you go back to China? I was talking about Asia a little while ago. So there's South Asia, there's Southeast Asia, and then there's the Far East, with the massive, large nation of China, all there. The way to consider the Far East, what I call the Far East, is to look to what is the Orient. There's a move afoot by someone who is obviously distant from the English language to suggest that the word Oriental is a pejorative. It was never meant to be a pejorative. But anyway, where's the Orient? The Orient is China and China. There are two Chinas. The People's Republic of China and the Republic of China, Taiwan. So China, China, Korea, Korea, North Korea, South Korea, and Japan. Is an Asian an Oriental? No, not always. Is an Oriental an Asian? Yes, always. Let's think about the rest of our world. let's say go to Europe. Do the geography test yourself when you're next at work or at your cocktail party or on your Friday night soirees testing the local whatever it is. Try it with your friends. How many nations in the European Union this year? Do they know? There are 27 nations in the European Union. 27. Now, the issue is that these are nations of longevity, of depth, of extraordinary educational backgrounds. They are almost a United States of Europe. Who do you think they will compete with? Obviously, right at this time, while we're talking, we have the Eurozone crisis, but things are slowly getting better, and they will. But these are powerful nations, not only militarily, but they are powerful nations in terms of their background, educational background. They're powerful nations in terms of the verb and thrust, and their interaction with the rest of the world. What about the rest of Europe? Well, obviously there is the CIS, the Confederation of Independent States. These are the countries that are still like satellites revolving around Russia. And then there are the NIS, the newly independent nations. These are the countries I was speaking about before. Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan. These are the newly independent nations. They are incredibly wealthy in terms of their vast, usually untapped natural resources. Incredibly wealthy. And they will continue to be significant players on the world stage. Let's go down to Africa. Just make it smaller. The way to look at Africa is to divide it up into three. Can you show me a bit of the Mediterranean? All right. First, look at Africa with that section of North Africa. The countries of North Africa, make it bigger. Morocco, Algeria, Libya, Egypt, etc. Very recently in the news, of course. But those nations, with the rest of the countries slightly to their north, they formed that necklace around the Mediterranean. Greece, Italy, Spain, etc., that for 400 years of our planet's history ruled the world. The rest of Africa, I think that the easy way to, and it's a very easy way to think about the rest of Africa, is to divide it up into Francophone and Anglophone Africa. Francophone, obviously, French-speaking, Anglophone, English-speaking. The issue here, actually there's one other language, and that is Portuguese. The issue here is that there are umbilical linkages between most of these African nations and their ex-colonial parent country. So, Côte d'Ivoire, Guinea, Burkina Faso, Togo, Cameroon, etc. All of those countries to France, Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa, go down, etc. All of those to the United Kingdom. Obviously, as I said, there is another language significant, and that is Portuguese, for instance, Mozambique. So sad, but Africa is resuscitating itself. If you are persuaded to think about Africa only because you see images of small little dark children with pot bellies starving on the streets, etc., do remember that this is Africa of great Ophir of the Bible. This is Africa of great Zimbabwe, the original great Zimbabwe. This is Africa that provided so much, either voluntarily or hatefully, in the human traffic that other humans caused to befall it. This is Africa of great resources. It is a sad nation, a sad continent, because it is still beset all about by dictators, systems which are not perfect, and by awful disease. Let's look to the Middle East. So, the Middle East, constantly in our news, constantly the victim of media pundits, shrill in their exclamations, overt in their inclination to cast aspersion. You know, I'm often in classrooms, and I share with my students that if they're sitting in an air-conditioned room, most of the Western Hemisphere didn't do it. The first forms of air conditioning were created by the Arabs. If they move water from one part of the United States to the other, say Colorado to California, you didn't learn how to do it. The Arabs did it. In fact, the Arabs and the Persians did it. You didn't know how to do it. Aqueducts were not your invention. The Middle East gifted so much to the rest of the world. It gifted art and letter and math and vast tracts of science. You shouldn't allow modern pundits and screaming TV people to color your vision. Obviously, we know this part of the world. You must leave Egypt out. Egypt ran the world for a lengthy period of time. Obviously, Saudi Arabia, all of these countries. Please do remember, as you consider, and when you talk, and when you listen to folk who are allowed to be on the media, Iran, and the word is Iran, for God's sake, not Iran, it's Iran. Iran, the people are Persians. They're a distinct, different race. They're not Arabs. Of course, there's Afghanistan, Syria, which is in our news right at the moment, the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan. Slap in the middle of this area, of course, Israel. Can we go to the United States? So, across the Atlantic, and good grief, where are we? Yes, these interesting countries here. The United States of America, and to its north, Canada. Do remember, by the way, that Canada is British. Of the 200-odd sovereign nations, 60-odd are British Commonwealth countries, where English is spoken. When you look at North and South America, far too often there are mistaken environments of thought. It should always be remembered that the first great universities were not in the United States. The first great universities were in Mexico. And their universities are still stellar, stunning academic institutions. Universidad Guadalajara, Universidad Michoacán, Morelia, Monterrey. These are great academic institutions. They provide the foundation for the arts and letters that is riven through Central and South American academe. We have this extraordinary country, Mexico, to our south, and we have the other extraordinary country, Canada, to the north, obviously now bound together by the NAFTA arrangement. But it is further south, the new thrusting nations, all of Central America and the Caribbean are important. Cuba is becoming incredibly important and interesting. Discoveries of natural resources off its shores, and with a changing political framework, posture. But here, let's look at South America. All of the countries of South America, from Argentina all the way up to the north to Brazil, countries like Chile, Peru, Argentina, Brazil, very important nations on the planet, going to be increasingly important. New industries, computer-ready, computer technology advanced populations. So when you look around at people and when you consider them, just because they happen to be in London and just because they happen to be in Idaho or in China, etc., do you look beyond the person to wonder from whence they come? What is the depth of their background and their antecedents? It's obviously only the complacent who don't want to know, because not needing to know, not needing to consider it, not needing to respect those backgrounds is so much easier. It takes so much less work. But it is somewhat disrespectful. Nowhere is actually too far. As we continue to make advances in international airline travel, as communication on phones and other devices is near instant, it is going to be increasingly that nowhere is too far.
On behalf of Dr. Ranasinghe and the Global Executive Training and Development Association, thank you for watching. Join us again for another episode of Global Reflections.